Good morning, Kuhner country. Okay, my friends, massive scandal. It's getting bigger and bigger and bigger now by the day. And it's a key race now that Democrats are hoping desperately to win in their effort to try to take back control of Congress in the 2026 midterm elections. So, just north of us here in Boston, in the great state of Maine, and I've been to Maine many times. It is an absolutely gorgeous state. Seafood is outstanding. People are nice, warm, friendly, and physically it is a stunning state. Well, as you know, the Susan Collins, who really is a rhino's rhino, and I'm just stating a fact, you don't get more of a liberal Republican, an anti-Trump Republican, a globalist Republican than Susan Collins. And that's what makes this story so shocking. It's, if you can't work with Susan Collins, then literally you can't work with anybody. She's practically a Dem, just with an R next to her name. And yet, the Democrats are so desperate for power, so desperate to regain control of both the House and the Senate, that now they're making deals with the devil. And in this case, with a sick man, a racist man, a communist, literally, I swear to you, a communist who sports, or at least sported until recently, very recently, because of this whole scandal, a Nazi tattoo. So, here is now exactly what is taking place. Graham Plattner is a Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate in Maine. He is an oysterman. Okay, he's in the oyster farming business. And so, he's a former veteran, a military vet, who lives in rural Maine. And so they think he's got the right profile, the right resume to defeat Susan Collins, who is vulnerable in Maine. There's no question she's vulnerable. They think he's the candidate that can beat her. He's a veteran. He's a farmer, an oysterman. He's from the rural part of the state. And so they think that resume is enough to carry him to victory. In reality, the reason why the radical left is investing everything in Graham Plattner is that he is a protege of Bernie Sanders. He is a protege of AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and he is clearly a protege of Zohran Mamdani. And so they don't want to just pick up the seat for the Democrats. They want to continue their complete takeover and hijacking of the Democratic Party. Graham Plattner is initially he said, he was a vegetable-growing psychedelics socialist. He likes to do a lot of drugs, and he was a socialist. He now says, as he's gotten a little bit older, that he is, his words, not mine, a communist. A full-throated communist. He is a huge admirer of Bernie Sanders, of Zohran Mamdani, of AOC, of Ilhan Omar, of Rashida Tlaib. And so he wants a communist revolution in the United States of America. He is also, by the way, a ferocious defender of Antifa. He is a Trump hater to the bone, to the core. Well, over 20 years ago, when he was then a Marine, a young Marine, a 22-year-old Marine, as luck would have it, he was in Croatia, right? My parents' ancestral homeland. I was there just a couple months ago. And apparently he got drunk with his buddies, and he liked this tattoo. It was a skull and bones tattoo, and so he had the tattoo put on his chest. It's a Nazi tattoo. It's a Nazi tattoo. In fact, it's the skull and bones, the very symbol of the Nazi SS. In fact, it's what's called a Totenkopf. And the Totenkopf was the Nazi SS guards. These were the people that were literally liquidating Jews at certain concentration camps. And that was their specific tattoo. Now, he has had this tattoo on his body for decades. For decades. And yet, now when it came out that he had this Nazi tattoo, he claimed initially that he had no idea it was a Nazi tattoo. That he just took, he just put it on, A, because he was drunk. B, he said, it just looked cool to me. His own political director has come out, or former political director, has now come out and said that is a bald-faced lie. He would often joke about the tattoo on his chest, that it was a Nazi tattoo, that it was a, quote, badass tattoo, and that he thought it was cool and edgy to have an SS skull and bones on his chest. That, in fact, friends of his have come out and said, we used to have private conversations, and he would brag, and he would say, hey, none of you have a Totenkopf, the SS skull and bones tattoo on your chest. Well, I've got it on mine, baby. Oh, look at me. Look at me. They don't get more tough than me. They don't get more edgy than me. So I don't believe him. I don't believe him. When he says that he had no idea what that tattoo actually symbolized and meant, I don't believe him because he's lying. And frankly, everybody knows that he's lying. But that still hasn't stopped the Democrats. They have now come out, I swear to you, in unison, led by Bernie Sanders, Bolshevik Bernie. Now remember, these are the same Democrats. Fascist, Trump's Hitler, Nazi. Being a Nazi is allegedly the worst thing in the world for them. The Republicans are Nazis. MAGAs are Nazis. Conservatives are Nazis. Hell, I'm a Nazi. Trump's a Nazi. Everybody's a Nazi. But suddenly, when it's one of their own, it's no problem. Suddenly, when it's one of their own, oh, come on. It was a stupid mistake. A drunk Marine 22 years ago. Come on, what are you talking about? He made a mistake. He went through a dark period. But that's not what matters. What matters now is Viva la Revolution. What matters now is he's a Bernista. He's a Bernie Mamdani AOC communist. And so we will forgive him everything. Listen to them now. Not only are they not withdrawing their endorsement for Graham Plattner, they are doubling down. They want Plattner to be the next senator from Maine. And they're now willing to excuse his Nazi tattoo. Roll cut 19, Mike.
I am not overly impressed by a squad of media running around saying, what do you think about the tattoo on Graham Plattner's chest? Between you and me, there might be one or two more important issues. But let me go there. I'm not Graham's best friend. I met him several times. We did a rally in Portland, Maine, a great rally. I am impressed by the guy. This is a guy who has served 4 tours of duty with the United States military. He was in the middle of some heavy-duty combat. He was a machine gunner. He went through some very difficult experiences in the military as a machine gunner, seeing his friends killed. Came out of the military. He will acknowledge, I'm not telling you what he doesn't say yet, PTSD. He went to the VA, and by the way, but he says they rebuilt his life. All right. He went into a dark period in his life. I suspect that Graham Plattner is not the only American to have gone through a dark period.
So basically, the PTSD made him do it. And then, so why didn't he cover it up with another tattoo all those years instead of bragging about it to his friends? Until literally just recently, he finally covered up that Nazi tattoo because it became such an issue. So you see, the very same party, remember the hard time they gave Pete Hegseth? How one of the reasons why they said he was disqualified to be Secretary of Defense was because he had not a Nazi tattoo, not the hammer and sickle, a communist tattoo. No. A Christian symbol tattoo. A Christian tattoo. They said, that was a crypto-Nazi tattoo. It's Christian nationalism, which means Nazism. And that disqualified him. The tattoo itself. 619 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868 is the number. So the Democrats now have become convinced that their best chance to beat Susan Collins, a Republican, a rhino, an uber rhino, but still, technically, she has an R next to her name, and they want to take back the Senate. They want to take back the House. And so the Democrats now believe that their best chance is with this self-avowed communist. I really want to stress this to everybody. Graham Plattner is a communist. He identifies himself. He calls himself a communist. He said, I used to be a socialist, a psychedelic socialist. He's done a lot of drugs. But he said, no, now as I've gotten older, I've gone full Karl Marx, full Antifa. So he is a huge admirer and supporter of Bernie Sanders, Bolshevik Bernie, of Zoran Mamdani, of AOC, of Ilhan Omar. Really, he's an American communist. Well, this American communist got drunk when he was a 22-year-old Marine, according to him, and got himself a skull and bones Nazi SS tattoo on his chest. And he's been wearing it proudly for decades. A Nazi tattoo. The Democrats now are standing by him all the way. By the way, so is the media. The New York Times supports him. The Boston Globe supports him. Politico supports him. They're all supporting him. Now, I played the cut of Bernie where he goes on about, he had some tough combat experiences, multiple tours of duty. He had PTSD, i.e., so the PTSD made him do put the Nazi tattoo on. Well, as Sandy pointed out to me during the break, and she's completely right, Pete Hegseth had, 3 tours of duty? Right? How many tours of duty? He had multiple tours of duty. They didn't say, that excuses him having, and by the way, it wasn't a Nazi symbol. It was a Christian symbol as a tattoo. But no. Hegseth has a Christian symbol tattoo, and he's literally disqualified from being Secretary of Defense. Christian nationalism. Boy, that's the road to Nazism, fascism. My God, you can't have him in power. But an actual Nazi tattoo. Hey, he went through a dark period. What's the problem? Now, it's even worse than that, if you can believe it. On Reddit, he has made racist message after racist message. And he's been insulting blacks. He's been insulting women. He's been making some of the sickest, making some of the sickest things, making some of the sickest comments available. Now, one of them is that he has been openly calling for the murder of Trump supporters. And he's on Reddit. He says that he told his leftist supporters, tell them that if they expect to fight fascism, so now fascism is bad. The Nazi tattoo is good. SS, good. but Trump and MAGA, not so much. So I guess there are good Nazis and bad Nazis. So these are now the bad Nazis. Tell them if they expect to fight fascism, i.e. Trump, without a good semi-automatic rifle, they ought to do some reading of history. And then in another one, he said he's got his guns, and that's how you treat the fascists. So he's openly calling for violence and to go after MAGA and Trump supporters with guns and with semi-automatic weapons. How the hell is this? I mean, how is this guy still standing as a political candidate? And this is the kind of guy now the Democrats are openly embracing? Now, this is what he wrote about white people. I could go on and on. Here's what he wrote about white people. Quote, and he's a bigot. I mean, he's a hardcore bigot. Somebody responded somebody wrote to him on Reddit, and they were bashing Trump. In other words, saying that the rural vote is not going to be what Trump thinks it's going to be for him. And they said, quote, white people aren't as racist or stupid as Trump thinks. His response, this is Graham Plattner, living in white rural America, i.e. Maine, I'm afraid to tell you they actually are. Now, he then went on, listen to this, about black people. He doesn't like black people. And according to him, he says that he questions, let me just get the right quote here. I don't want to misquote him. Anyway, I'll get that. I'll get a quote. But he's bashing blacks for not, according to him, being very smart. He's bashing women and basically saying those who claim that they've been raped are just screwed up women who regret the fact that they slept with somebody. I mean, the stuff that comes out of this guy's mouth is beyond sickening. And it doesn't matter how offensive, how bigoted, how racist, how you want to talk, you want to talk about sexist, chauvinistic. It doesn't matter what comes out of this guy's mouth. Everything they accuse the Republicans of, the Democrats are guilty of. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. You feel like you're in the Twilight Zone, but here we are. This is now the world the Democrats are creating for themselves. So, Bernie Sanders, and frankly, the entire Democratic Party, are now standing by Maine Oysterman, Graham Plattner, despite his racist posts, despite the fact that because he's a self-avowed communist, and he's got a Nazi tattoo. And he had it for decades, literally decades. And so what you have to ask yourself is, are the Democrats everything they falsely accuse Republicans of? They keep saying Republicans are racist. Check. That's Graham Plattner. They keep saying Republicans are sexist. Check. That's Graham Plattner. They keep saying Republicans are fascists and Nazis and Hitler lovers. Check. That's Graham Plattner. I mean, he's the one with the Nazi tattoo. And it wasn't just for a day or two. It was for decades and decades and decades. So, and he knew about it, obviously. He knew what the tattoo meant, what the symbol meant, and he bragged about it to his friends for God knows how many years. And so, and by the way, this all broke really over the last week. And as it broke, what shocked everybody was how they just cut one after another after another. The same people. Trump's a Hitler. He's a Nazi. My God, he's a fascist. Well, you got a guy up there in Maine who could be the next senator, and he literally has a Nazi, the skull and bones of the SS, for God's sake. The worst of the worst. Well, hey, he had a dark period in his life. Yeah, he had multiple tours of duty, the PTSD. It makes you do crazy things. Well, he's covered it up now. Like, what's the big deal? They went from no kings to yes Nazi, as John Nolte, I think, put it very well in his column on Breitbart. They've gone from no kings to yes Nazi in their sick desire to defeat Trump and regain political power. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, so let me ask all of you. Does this now fatally discredit the Democratic Party? That they are literally circling the wagons now over a man who sported a freaking Nazi tattoo for, what is it, almost 20 years? Are they truly a projectionist party? Where they really are everything that they falsely accuse Republicans of? And can you ever take them seriously on anything again? 617-266-6868 is the number. This is from Dave, our Western PA constitutionalist correspondent. As you know, a Marine, a very proud Marine. And so I messaged him during one of the breaks, and I said, Dave, because now they're all using this example, well, the PTSD, the 3 tours of duty, on and on. By the way, as I said, Pete Hegseth had multiple tours of duty. They didn't say that excused his Christian tattoo. That was evil. That was bad. That was disqualifying. This is not disqualifying for Graham Plattner. And I said, so Dave, because Dave did multiple tours of duty. He's a great patriot. Dave, did you ever feel the need to get a Nazi tattoo when you returned from your deployments? And I said, yeah, I thought so. Plattner's disgusting. And I said to him, he's a disgrace to Marines everywhere. And so Dave wrote back saying, no, I felt no need whatsoever to ever get a Nazi tattoo. What I did, I got a tattoo of the United States Marine Corps. And he went on to say that this guy from Maine, i.e. Plattner, is a fake Marine and a disgrace to Marines everywhere. And then he went on to say, Jeff, liberals, all in caps, are hypocrites, buddy. And that is so true. That is so true. And so, look, I want to put it all on the table, and then I want to take your calls. A couple lines are still open if you want to jump on. 617-266-6868 is the number. You now have the Democratic Party, in particular, the communist wing, the far, far left wing of the party, completely now defending and galvanizing around a man who had an SS freaking tattoo. The tattoo that the SS guards had as a source of pride when they were liquidating the Jews at concentration camps. And yet, he hasn't lost a single endorsement. Not one Democrat has disowned him. Not one Democrat has come out condemning him. They support him all the way. You have Jay Jones, the Democrat candidate for Attorney General in Virginia, who his text messages, as they've come out, now show that he openly fantasizes about murdering Republicans, about putting bullets into the heads of Republicans, that he has fantasies about their young children dying in the arms of their parents and having these Republicans watch their young children die in their arms. And by the way, he's running to be the top law enforcement officer in Virginia. He wants to be the top guy to enforce the law. And he's fantasizing about essentially genocide and wiping out his political opponents, 2 bullets to the head, and kill their children too, quote unquote, those little fascists. And not one Democrat has condemned him. Not one Democrat has pulled or withdrawn their endorsement. Not one. Not one. And so my question to you, this is what they accuse Republicans of all the time. We're the violent ones. We're the ones that pose a threat to the, existential threat to democracy. We're the ones who want to create a Fourth Reich. We're the ones now who are enabling Hitler 2.0. Has the Democratic Party now become such an extreme, toxic party, full of such liars and hypocrites, that really you cannot take them seriously anymore? And as long as you have a D next to your name, especially if you're a communist D, a Marxist D, a D, a full-blown socialist Democrat, they will excuse anything. Anything. Calls for murder, calls for murdering children, Nazi tattoos, anything you can speak of, just as long as you're one of them. 617-266-6868. Graham Plattner, should he now step down from the race? And why is it okay for him to have had a Nazi tattoo for years and years and years, but suddenly it was so bad and disqualifying for Pete Hegseth when he had just a simple Christian tattoo? 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let me just ask you this. I want to go to the phone lines, obviously, but if you're a liberal, a lefty, a Democrat, whatever, a moonbat in Maine, how the hell do you pull the lever for a candidate that for years and years, I'm talking almost 20 years, was sporting a freaking Nazi tattoo right on his chest? An SS, skull and bones tattoo. Like, really, I mean, I don't know. Even Bill in Sudbury. Seriously, no, Bill, really? You don't see how insane this is? How hypocritical, how phony? How this contradicts everything that you people claim to believe in? And you're still, and you're still going to do it? Ay, ay, ay. Ay, ay, ay. Look, if Susan Collins is smart, and she's not, that's her problem. But if Susan Collins is smart, holy mackerel. I mean, she should destroy Graham Plattner over this. I mean, I would just link him to put the Nazis, any ad with Graham, run ads, and you just put Graham Plattner right next to a Nazi symbol. That's it. Just do split screen. Hitler, Graham Plattner. Nazi swastika, Graham Plattner. That's it. That's all you run. All the way, until your re-election. 617-266-6868. Lou in Rhode Island. Thanks for holding, Lou, and welcome.
Yeah, how you doing, Jeff? For years we've been talking about Democratic projection onto Republicans, and it's just so obvious now. I mean, here, look at this. Look what they've done, just by supporting this guy. They have basically flushed gun control and E. Jean Carroll right down the toilet with this guy's comments. I mean, a guy who, talks about fake rape. They depended on fake rape the whole time while they were going after Trump. And gun control, they definitely flushed that down the toilet. And some of his comments or posts that he put out there, if a kid in high school would put them out there, they'd get a red flag. wouldn't they? About using guns and going after your enemies. This is a red flag for any school shooter or anything like that. This is just crazy. They're putting a guy who's nuts, basically totally nuts, on the ticket to run for Senate in Maine because he's a veteran. It's just like with Walz. Walz was a veteran, and they tried to boost him up as a veteran, and he fell apart. The same thing is basically true with this guy. They're using his veteran status as trying to get to the normal people, but this guy is so not normal. It's ridiculous. And the other thing is that we need to take these people at their word, their original word, when they're unfiltered, when they're doing like these basically Freudian slips. That's who they really are. And you did the whole thing the other day on the No Kings. Look at some of the footage from the No Kings. They had that woman who was pointing a gun to her throat, mocking the Charlie Kirk people. They also had people who were interviewed saying that it's good that Charlie died because he was like Hitler. So Charlie died because he was like Hitler, but they basically want to nominate a Hitler-type person to run for Senate in Maine. They are totally hypocrites. They're projecting onto others, and they are very, very violent. They're violent, and just about everything they do is they promote violence. As a matter of fact, they do have some former military who are actually training Antifa in Antifa camps. And they can't go after Antifa soon enough. Pam Bondi can't go after them soon enough because they are training. They are basically Obama's citizen army. And this guy is just another one. He's a communist. He's like Bernie. And remember that. And I think you should give everybody a little bit of a history lesson, too, on the origins of Antifa. Antifa started in Germany by the Stalinist communist group, and then it was resurrected by the Maoist communist group in the 1970s, and then here in the 1990s and now today. So they are not this little pacifist group. They're not Code Pink or anything like that.
No, the exact opposite. No, you're right. No, they were created in East Germany. You're completely right. Look, and I remember I had a liberal caller last week, and she was a good caller, smart caller. I disagreed with her, but, she was coherent. It was logical. It was civil, the debate that we had. And she was like, well, how could anybody be against fascism? I'm like, no, you're missing the point. Of course we're against fascism. My God, who wouldn't be against fascism? But in the Marxist communist mind, and this started in the Soviet Union, the world is divided up into two camps. Anti-fascists, who are the commies. Literally, that's the Stalin, as you're talking about. Those were the Soviets. The communists. They were the, quote, anti-fascists. And everybody else is a fascist. I mean, everybody. Conservatives are fascists. Liberals are fascists. Social Democrats are fascists. Centrists are fascists. It doesn't matter. If you're a non-communist, you're a quote-unquote fascist. And so that's how they divide the world. So I was trying to explain to her that Antifa, when they say we're anti-fascists, they're adopting the hammer and sickle view of the world that literally came from the Soviet Union, to be more specific, Stalinist East Germany after World War II. That was the birthplace of Antifa. And then it spread across Europe. And then, of course, it eventually came here to the United States. So for them, there's only two blocks in the world, in the whole world. It's either you're a communist Marxist or, and it doesn't matter anything else, you're a fascist. And you must be destroyed by any means necessary. And so that's why I'm not saying this for rhetorical effect. Antifa is a domestic terrorist organization. It started its roots as a domestic terrorist organization. It spread as a Marxist terrorist organization. And it is a Marxist terrorist organization. Now Trump is designated as such, but whether he designates it or not, objectively, that's what they are. They are the heirs of Lenin. They are the heirs of Stalin. And if you look at their Antifa handbook, they admit it. They admit it. They're not hiding it. They're proud of it. You read their literature. They're proud of it. So, and you just interview them. Interview any of these Antifa people and say, what do you think of Stalin? Great man. Lenin, great man. Mao, great man. So they're like, no, we need a communist revolution, a Marxist revolution in America. If you're, either you're with us or you're against us. And if you're against us, you're a fascist. And we are the anti-fascists. So you're not 100, Lou. You're 1,000% correct. Lou, I've got to ask you this, and I want to ask the audience this, okay? Only because of what's happening now in Maine. And the country's eyes are now on Maine and this Senate race. In all honesty, seriously, could you ever put on a Nazi tattoo? Say, whatever, you're drunk, whatever, you went out, you lost your mind, you had too many drinks, you went to a tattoo parlor, maybe you didn't even know it was a Nazi tattoo. It's like, oh, there's skull and bones, this is really cool, this is badass stuff. Oh boy, this is gonna shock people, and okay, put it right there, right around the chest area, right there. And you realize within a day or two or a week or whatever, you're like, oh, gee, this isn't just like a skull and bones thing. This is the SS. This is their tattoo. In all honesty, could you keep that tattoo on your chest day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year? I would feel so dirty. It would so bother my conscience. Honest to God, I feel like violated. If you assume, we're just buying his story that he was drunk as a Marine. Okay, so let's just assume the story. Because I don't believe anything that comes out of his mouth, because he's a liar. But just for the sake of argument, 22 years old, people do stupid things at 22, let's be honest. Okay, everybody does things they're embarrassed when they're 22. So, hey, I went drinking with the guys, and I wake up, next morning and like, son of a bee, what the hell is on my chest? But the moment I found out it was a Nazi tattoo, I'd be like, get this thing off of my body right away, or cover it up with another tattoo. But this, I can't have this on me. But this guy, no problem. And the only reason now he just recently covered it up was because it became such a big issue in the campaign. In other words, they were saying, well, do you still have the tattoo? And initially it was like, yeah. Well, how could you still have it? Well, now he had to cover it up. But if he wasn't running for Senate, he'd still have that freaking tattoo. So, Lou, I gotta ask you, in all honesty, if you had a Nazi tattoo, could you sleep with that tattoo, walk around with that tattoo, shower with that tattoo, with your wife in bed or whatever, there's that tattoo. Could you have that? I'm just curious. What's your answer, Lou?
Oh, Jeff, of course not. If anything like that ever happened, the minute you find out what it is, you just get it removed. I mean, it doesn't take that much to get a tattoo removed. And then one other thing is he has a combination of Nazi and communist sympathies. And we got to remember another thing about these guys who support these Nazis is that the Nazis just didn't. The Jews were the main ones, but they didn't think much of Slavs and black people either. Or they killed a lot of gypsies. I mean, when you find out what that thing really means, you get that thing erased right away. And he should have had it right, but he got caught, and so now he erases it. This is typical Democrat. They get caught. Oh, I didn't mean it. Oh, I went back and that guy said, that guy Jones. Oh, I went back and apologized to I think his name was Gilbert, the Speaker of the House. I went and apologized. Oh, that makes up for everything. These Democrats are so basically vicious that it's beyond belief. I mean, the whole party is nothing but one big fat lie.
Lou, have a great weekend. Excellent call. 617-266-6868. Jeff in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Jeff, and welcome.
Hey, buddy, I know this background noise. Give me half a second and I'll get out of shock here.
Yeah, sure. I don't want to rush you, Jeff.
We're good.
We're just live, Jeff, and we've got millions of people listening. But that's okay, Jeff. Go ahead. On your schedule, my friend.
Not much more quiet outside with the trucks running, but I'm walking away.
I'm just joking. I understand. You're trying to make have as clean a call as possible. Jeff, please go ahead. What's on your mind?
Well, I know a thing or two about the subculture that tattoo is wrapped up with, and it's even worse than you think.
Really?
First of all, most tattoo shops that I've ever been to, and I've got quite a few tattoos, wouldn't do that. So you'd have to be going to a tattoo shop that is wrapped up in the subculture itself. Now, all the Nazi tattoos are earned tattoos. You have to do something to get it. If they find you with it and you can't prove that you earned it, they'll take it off you with a belt sander.
Really?
Uh-huh.
So who's they? Now, are you like neo-Nazis, white supremacists, those kind of people?
Yes, those kind of people. It's, so saying he got the tattoo by mistake or he didn't know what he was doing doesn't really fly with the research I've done into the movement, the neo-Nazi movement. On top of that, coming from Maine traditionally was a fairly racist state. When the KKK was in their heyday, the most people enrolled or part of the club, however you want to call it, the state of Maine, not per capita, but on sheer numbers alone, had the highest enrollment of all the states in the country.
Oh, I didn't know that. I did not know that. You're talking about what, 1920s, 1930s?
Yes.
Interesting.
On here where, I didn't know, it was a mistake. I'm having an awful hard time believing that line.
So, Jeff, you think he's kind of, and I know it almost seems contradictory at first, but, look, if you're attracted to one kind of totalitarian ideology, it's very easy to embrace another one. Like, for example, so many former communists, I'm talking diehard communists, became National Socialists. In East Germany, when they divided up Germany after World War II, many former Nazis became, diehard Stalinists, diehard East German communists. So you just, change from race to class. Just a few, but basically, it's so much of it is, you look at Marxism and Nazism, Nazism is really a form of socialism. It's National Socialism. So yeah, they fight like crazy over a few things, but they agree so much more than they disagree. There's a lot of overlap. Do you think ultimately this guy is a Nazi communist? In other words, probably a Nazi when he was younger. And then as he got more involved in politics and listened to Bernie and others, said, I like a lot of what these guys are saying. And so, yeah, I can call myself a communist. Are we looking at, is that what you think this guy is? That, in other words, that tattoo is him?
In my research with people I've interviewed and stuff, it's both clubs are kind of the same thing. And what people get drawn to from what I've gathered from research I've done is a lot of these people come from broken homes, broken families, not a lot of friends, and they get sucked into it because it's a club. It gives them a sense of belonging to something. From the research I've done and the people that I've interviewed. So as long as they get that, sort of sense of family, I guess, then they really don't care about the rest of it.
Ah, interesting. Very interesting. Jeff,
now the people,
very
the
insightful call. Please, go ahead. Finish your thought. Go ahead.
People I interviewed were on the younger side. They were probably late 20s and younger. I did not interview, well, a couple of older folks, but not very many of them. So I don't know what changes as they get older, you know what I mean? But it's more of those kinds of people looking for something to belong to.
Well, that's what Bernie offers. I mean, that's what the Marxist Democrats offer. I mean, I have to give the devil its due. You know, you're part of that Mamdani movement. You really feel you're part of something bigger, you know, or AOC, or, you know, you become a Bernie Democrat, a Bernie Sanders Democrat. You know, you go to these rallies and they're thick as thieves. You know, they don't just show up and, you know, whatever, listen to some speeches, couple speeches and go home. No, it's a whole day. And it's a network, it's a clan, it's friends, they go drinking together, they organize together, they network together, they're on email chains, they're on text chains. I mean, you're right. It's like you're part of an extended family. You really feel like you're part of something much bigger. And for guys like him, that's toxic. I mean, he loves it. I mean, it's bad, but he can't help himself. And also, he's done a lot of drugs. From everything I've read about Graham Plattner, I mean, a lot of drugs. So he's also been frying his brain on stuff, for a long time. So that certainly doesn't help either. But look, he's espousing what the communist Democrats want. He's a Bernie, he's a Bernista all the way. And, Bernie loves him and he loves Bernie in return. And that's good enough. AOC has now blessed him. Zoran Mamdani has blessed him. And again, the Democrat establishment is powerless to stop him. It really shows you now that the communists have really taken over the Democratic Party. Even a guy with a Nazi tattoo, they can't stop him. If he says he's a communist and Bernie says, it's like Lenin. Really, if Lenin said you're good, you're good. Doesn't matter who you were, what you said before, what you did, it doesn't matter. And I think that's what we're seeing right now in front of our eyes. The only question now is, are the voters of Maine frankly stupid enough, insane enough, self-hating enough to vote for this guy? Because if they vote for him and he becomes their senator, they're going to be known to the country and to the world as the state that voted for a guy with a freaking SS tattoo. Okay, a Nazi SS tattoo. Holy mackerel. That's not a state I want to be a part of if they end up voting for him. If I was a Mainer, if I lived in Maine and they end up voting for this guy, I would truly be ashamed for my state. I would. So anyway, it is what it is. Jeff, thank you so much for that call. I really appreciate it. 617-266-6868. Bob in Fall River. Thanks for holding, Bob, and welcome.
Hi, how are you? I don't think, though, that we should actually look at this as a surprise because, it was just last year with that, the Democrats know what a real man is. And then you find out about that Doug Emhoff, who is married to Kamala, and it was, that's in his past. That's no big deal. This is just very, to me, it's like I don't not expect them to be hypocrites in a lot of instances. What surprises me about this more than anything is that although I don't like her as well, Maine does have another Democratic candidate that, it would be very...
Bob, can you please hang on? I really want you to finish your point because I think I know where you're going. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, let's go right back to Bob in Fall River. Bob, please, you were on a roll. Pick up where you left off.
Yeah, and like I said, from what I've heard, I don't much care for his primary opponent on the Democratic side, but a lot of the people who are endorsing him, I would think, I mean, this is just like what would be common sense. You have the ability, just turn around and say, well, now that this stuff has come to light, maybe we'll throw our support towards her. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on her name there.
It's Janet Mills.
The
Janet governor,
Mills.
Janet Mills. And look, Bob, I promise I'll give you all the time in the world, so I don't mean to cut you off, but you're right. Look, Janet Mills, I mean, she's pro-transgender. What I'm saying is she's pro-Green New Deal. She's pro-transgender. She's rabid anti-Trump. She wants to defund the police. I could go on and on. So what I'm saying is it's not like she's some, I don't know, blue-collar Democrat, moderate Democrat. She's a very liberal, left-wing, quote-unquote, progressive Democrat. It's Janet Mills, for God's sake. She's practically turned Maine into a sanctuary state. So if you objectively look at the issues, you can't get more left-wing than Janet Mills until you find this guy, Graham Plattner, who's like a full-blown Bernie Mamdani communist. Antifa, really, that's what he is. He's Antifa. Okay, the only difference is he's got an oyster farm instead of, rioting on the streets of Portland. But essentially, that's what he is. He is a Marxist, anarchist, Antifa supporter with or at least up until recently, with a big mother Nazi tattoo on his chest. And so what that shows to me, Bob, is how radical now the Democrat Party has become, I think unquestionably, and how weak the establishment is. Janet Mills is not left-wing enough? And one last point, and I want to go back to you, Bob. I think what it also shows, and this is not my point, Larry made this point on Messenger, and in fact I want to read it after the break, because I think he put his finger right on it. This is the Mamdani effect now. Mamdani is running away with this in New York City. And so the message now that the Democrats are getting is you have to go full communist. That's the future. That's where the energy, the momentum, the popularity, the votes are within the party. And so this guy comes along and says, yeah, I'm with Mamdani all the way. I'm with Bernie all the way. I'm with AOC all the way. And he makes it very clear. He goes, I used to be a vegetable-growing psychedelics socialist, i.e. a stoner socialist. He goes, I'm not that anymore. In other words, I've gotten even more left-wing. He goes, now, as I get older, I'm just a full-blown communist. I'm quoting you now directly. That's verbatim. In other words, I'm a Bernie brother. All the way. Long live the revolution. And so what's clear now is they think that's the ticket to power. But what they're going to realize, I hope and I pray, that Maine is not New York City. That this stuff may work in New York City. And there's polling now why, and I'll get to this later. Basically, there's such a massive foreign-born population now in New York. They are the ones who are voting for Mamdani. The homegrown liberals, the homegrown Democrats, they're breaking for Andrew Cuomo. But now the city is so full of migrants and illegals and people who come from third world countries, many of them Muslims, but it doesn't matter, from the third world, Muslim or not Muslim. They're the ones now who are driving Mamdani to victory. Well, Maine is not New York City, or at least I hope not. But that's the thinking now, that Bernie and Mamdani are the future. And Janet Mills now seems like yesterday's candidate. Old, washed up, boring, somebody who's just no longer relevant, like Chuck Schumer. AOC can destroy Schumer in a primary. And I think what the left now wants to show, the hard left, is that you can run your governor, who's done her best to fight Trump, and we're going to run a commie, even with a freaking Nazi tattoo, and we're going to beat her in the Democratic nomination because it's no longer your party, it's our party. Bob, final word to you.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say one last thing, how this ties in, and, you know, the hypocrisy is obviously there, but, like, if you notice the vote yesterday in the Senate that they could pay out certain federal positions got voted down by the Democrats, right? And I was watching on TV as a congressman said, well, we just didn't want Russ Vought to have power over who would get the money. And I'm thinking to myself, if you have the choice of, hey, we're going to pay some people, and whether it be all the people we wanted or just a few, right, we have that option or no option, right? You would take the do a little, you know, at least do a little, right? But they are so, like, dead set on, oh, no, we can't do that, right? So it's like a hive mind. Oh, we made the decision for your average Joe. I would imagine that people who at least...
No, Bob, you're right. Look, people who need a paycheck, 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, Sandy makes another really good point. She says, you know, Maine demographically is changing. You know, I talked about it just before the break with the previous caller, Bob, saying if you look at the breakdown in New York City of who's voting for Mamdani versus who's voting for Andrew Cuomo, it is the foreign-born, predominantly third-world populations that especially Biden let in. They are all in on Mamdani. That's his real base of support. And the homegrown New Yorkers, those who were born and raised in New York, liberal, Democrats, you know, through and through, they're splitting much more, breaking much more for Cuomo. And so the point I made was, demographically, Maine is not New York City. And so the Democrats may be thinking, well, it worked for Mamdani, it may work for them again in Maine with this guy, Graham Plattner. Well, Sandy makes an excellent point. Jeff, you have a massive Somalia population in Maine, just like you have in, you know, much like New York or frankly Minneapolis, which is why Ilhan Omar keeps getting now reelected, no problem. And it looks like they're going to elect their own Mamdani. Remember this guy Frey? He was a crazy, you know, liberal, pro-Black Lives Matter, drove Minneapolis into the ground. It looks like he's going to get beaten in the Democratic primary there for the mayoralty of Minneapolis by this guy called Omar Fateh, who's the only difference between him and Zoran Mamdani. They're both communists. They're both Muslim communists. The only difference is Mamdani is from Uganda and Fateh is from Somalia. I mean, that's it. That's it. Otherwise, their programs, their platforms, their goals, their objectives, they are identical. Identical. So we shall see. Okay, very, very quickly, I just want to read a couple things and then go right back to the phone lines. This is from Larry in Arkansas. And Larry right away says he's an Air Force veteran. This idea that suddenly you get PTSD and you start putting, you know, Nazi tattoos on your chest, he says, no, that's not how PTSD works, Jeff. And by the way, Graham Plattner, Jay Jones in Virginia, Zoran Mamdani, they are all the most evil, vile people, but they identify the correct way, i.e. Democrats, so they don't care. And he goes on to say that the Democrats think that since Mamdani is running away with it in New York, their platform is resonating with voters. And that might work in socialist New York City, but not in Maine. I mean, I hope you're right, Larry. I really do. And then Larry now says, look, as a vet, as someone who served our country, Jeff, Plattner is an embarrassment to the uniform. And Larry served in the Air Force. And he continues, if we had an airman who would brag about a Nazi tattoo, even in my time in the 1980s, we'd avoid him like the plague. Let me read to you one more. This is from the text line. You can text us 70470, 70470. This is from 603. Jeff, and it's a really good point. Jeff, should we be surprised that a hardcore left-winger has a Nazi tattoo? Absolutely not, and here's why. As much as the Democrat Party tries to portray the Nazis as being right-wing, they weren't. They were the National Socialist Workers' Party. That's true, by the way. That was their name. The National Socialist Workers' Party. A hardcore leftist movement. Moreover, the Democrats try to portray fascism as being right-wing. It wasn't. Italian strongman Benito Mussolini, who headed up the Italian fascist movement, was an avowed socialist. That is true also, by the way. He was another hardcore leftist. All these leftist movements, whether it was the Nazis, the fascists, or even the KKK, the Democrats try to distance themselves from their indefensible history by projecting their own guilt upon us conservatives. It's a textbook Saul Alinsky tactic. So am I surprised that this leftist Plattner had a Nazi tattoo? Not a bit. He's just showing his true colors in tattoo ink. Bingo. Bingo. And you see, look, remember Northam, the Virginia governor, Mr. Blackface? Remember a picture came out of him when he was younger, all in blackface? And so Ralph Northam. The difference between then and now, and we're just talking a couple of years, at least when the blackface pictures came out, say what you want, most Democrats denounced him and said he needed to step down. Now, he didn't, but at least they denounced him. Now, they don't denounce anybody. They don't denounce Jay Jones. They don't denounce this guy Plattner. They don't denounce the assassination of Charlie Kirk. I mean, no matter how outrageous your behavior, how vile or evil your conduct, now, if you're one of them, they back you all the way, baby. Sal in the Merrimack Valley. Thanks for holding, Sal, and welcome.
I wouldn't get a tattoo of a rubber ducky on my chest, let alone a Nazi tattoo on my chest. I mean, I feel like when I listen to AOC and Bernie Sanders, I get dumber. And when I feel like I listen to people like you, I get smarter. This guy, I don't understand. I mean, I respect the fact that he was in the military. He served his country. I respect that. But what I want to know is how the hell did this guy become so radicalized being in the military and working for our country? How does that happen? I just don't understand it.
Sal, he may have been radicalized before he got into the military. You know, I think you're making an assumption there. I'm not saying it's a silly assumption, quite the opposite, right? You're making in some ways a rational, logical assumption, which is a young man goes into the military and, gets drunk with his friends, whatever, he was off duty after a deployment or whatever, and he sticks a Nazi tattoo on his chest. But he may have been radical and disturbed, mentally unstable before he got into the military. No, to me, the story here is, okay, fine. I mean, not fine, but he did what he did. But that the Democrats are sticking with him and they're throwing money at him. I mean, Sal, they're going to get him over the finish line. He's going to beat Janet Mills. He's going to be the Democrat nominee. And with the full blessing of Bernie, AOC, and the entire Democratic Party. Sal, final word to you. Okay, we're going to take Sal on the other side. Sal, hang on. We're going to come right back to you, and we're going to continue to take your calls. Furthermore, you want to talk about Democrats being vicious? Oh, man, do I have a story for you. Don't touch that dial. Okay, we're going to continue to take your calls on this, obviously, because it's such a big story. But there's also another big story, and I would have actually done it, frankly, earlier in the week. But there were just a couple of explosive stories I had to cover. And that is now the attack on J.D. Vance and his wife. And remember, and this is all part of the same theme, Democrats behaving badly, and the Democrats now becoming so vicious, really so nasty, so partisan, that they just continue to shock people's imagination. So now they're embracing a man, an avowed communist, with a freaking Nazi tattoo. But that's who, by the way, is calling for Trump supporters to be murdered. And that, he's got a gun and you use these guns to go after MAGA and to kill him. So, by the way, now they like guns. Have you noticed that? Now they're all for guns. Whatever happened to gun control? Now, if you can hunt down MAGA and shoot them with your Nazi tattoo on your chest, then they love you. Then it's all fine and good, okay? But let that go. Jen Psaki, I'll circle back, who was one of the worst press secretaries and a liar that we've ever had, who covered up Biden's mental decline, covered up so many of Biden's crimes. Well, they didn't just give her a nice gig on MS Left BC. She's also now doing podcasts. And as you know, J.D. Vance and Usha Vance recently went, his wonderful wife, they went to Israel on a very high-profile trip. Now, as you know, Usha Vance and J.D. have young children. And Usha now has pulled back from her very promising career to raise these young children, to be a stay-at-home mom, saying my priority now is my family, my husband, and my children. And when my children grow up a little bit more, I'm going to go back onto the workforce. They're now trying to break up the Vance's marriage. That's literally now what they're trying to do. They're trying to falsely smear J.D. Vance as somehow a domestic abuser who is violating his wife, abusing his wife, mistreating his wife, and that she's almost being held hostage by J.D. But she's too submissive, too subordinate to leave him, separate, and divorce him. So listen now. This is Jen Psaki on a left-wing podcast going after Vance as some kind of a Manchurian candidate, and now saying that Usha Vance needs to be quote-unquote rescued. Roll cut 31, Mike.
I think the little Manchurian candidate, J.D. Vance, wants to be president more than anything else.
Yeah.
I always wonder what's going on in the mind of his wife. Like, Are you okay? Please blink 4 times.
Yes.
We'll come over here. We'll save you.
Please blink 4 times. Come over here and we'll save you. As if she needs to be rescued. Now, the blowback against Jen Psaki has been immense. Immense. And rightfully so. But look, I just got to say this, and I want to get your take. First of all, she goes on about how, J.D. wants to be president. He's a Manchurian candidate. Look at this. He wants to be president one day. You mean what, like Joe Biden? When he was Obama's VP, he didn't want to be president? I'm sorry, like Kamala, when she was Biden's VP and basically helped a coup overthrow him to be the presidential nominee? What, she didn't want to be president? Tell me, how about Al Gore when he was Bill Clinton's vice president. He didn't want to be president in 2000? In other words, okay, yeah, I hope J.D. Vance wants to be president. That's the whole point of being vice president. It's like you're grooming the guy to be the president. The vice presidency is like a stepping stone to become president. So why is this somehow so bad or evil? It's, again, Democrats can lust for the throne all day, all night. Their vice presidents can aspire to be presidents. But now JD wants to be president one day, and suddenly he's dangerous. He's overly ambitious. He's a Manchurian candidate. My God. Okay, but let that go. Okay, just let that go. Who the hell are you to try to destroy and taint their marriage? Who the hell are you to falsely claim that this woman is being held against her will in a loveless, unhappy marriage with J.D. Vance based on no evidence whatsoever? It's not even like there's some garbage hit piece in, I don't know, the Huffington Post or Politico or the New Yorker or the New York Times where you can, hold up a piece of paper and say, "Ooh, this is really troubling." She literally just made it up. Like right there on the podcast. Just like no evidence, just made it up. Just like, oh, she looks like she's very troubled. Ooh, blink 4 times. She's being held hostage. In other words, they're trying to sow division between the couple, between JD and his wife. So you want to break up their happy marriage? Let me just tell you this. I have been blessed, honestly. I have been blessed with an incredible wife. To me, when I say it, I say it tongue-in-cheek as a joke, but really it's not a joke. I did marry up. And I'm very blessed to have Grace as my wife. But I don't care about your politics. I really don't. I want everybody to have a successful marriage or a successful relationship or whatever you're involved in. I don't care. Republican, Democrat, independent, non-political, what? I don't care. I would never want to pit a couple against each other, a husband and wife, and try to create problems where none exist. Or smear or taint a woman because, why? She decided to focus on her children and support her husband as he's vice president of the United States? Suddenly now she's quote unquote too domesticated for Jen Psaki? Just that people know for the record, Usha Vance, by the way, Usha probably has at least 40 to 50 IQ points above Jen Psaki. I'm telling you. That's it. I'm just telling you. Okay, that's number one. But Usha Vance graduated from Yale. Usha Vance graduated from Yale Law School. By the way, with some of the top grades in her class. Usha Vance has clerked for Chief Justice John Roberts. Usha Vance has clerked for Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. Usha Vance was a very successful a lawyer who then decided when they had young children that I want to focus on the children to help raise them. And then when they get a little bit older, I'm going to come back and continue my career. The woman is a selfless mother, a very devoted, loving wife. And by the way, she has never, ever, either in public or in private, said a bad word about J.D. Vance. In fact, honestly, quite the opposite. She keeps going on about what a nice, gentle, sweet man he is. What a wonderful father he is. What a wonderful, loving husband he is. In fact, she's the one that goes on about when we got married, he so loved my mom, i.e. his mother-in-law, who, of Indian descent. She's from India. The wife, Usha, is of Indian descent, that he wanted to learn Indian food, to cook Indian food. to make my mom, his mother-in-law, feel welcome in the home. In fact, literally, it's the exact opposite. Instead of wanting to leave the marriage, she wants to stay in it because she loves it. And she loves him and her family. Like, how low can you go? Seriously, how low can you go? I'm going to continue. Take your calls, I promise. But first, 8 o'clock, you know what that is. Kuhner's Call Log, Caller of the Week.
It's time for Kuhner's Call Log, where we showcase our favorite caller from the week.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Thanks for holding, CJ.
What we just witnessed, and there's no King's Rally. These are the people that do not want to live by the rule of law in the United States of America, and it's not about a king or Donald Trump. It's about overthrowing the Constitution and overthrowing our country. Pam Bondi had no problem arresting Milwaukee Circuit Court Judge Hannah Dugan. We all remember her. Pulled her off the bench. What Pam Bondi needs to do is to arrest this judge, Jeffrey Cummings, and yank him off the bench. This judge doesn't have any jurisdiction on what he's doing, and he needs to be arrested. And today, President Trump needs to invoke the Insurrection Act because this is getting more and more violent. They are gathering their troops together, and it's only a matter of time before there is violence in America. And this is all due through the Democrats. They've latched onto these illegal aliens, and that is what's tying up this country. It's a trickle-down effect. They broke the law. They need to leave. And if the Democrats want to hang their hat on protecting these illegals and promoting violence in America, I say let it be, Jeff. Let it be.
And next week, it could be you on Kuhner's Call Log.
Please, don't be a stranger. Call again. Best audience in the business. Congratulations to CJ. He's one of our regular callers, and he always does extremely well every time he calls, but this one, grand slam. Okay, now, going back to Usha Vance for a second. So, here they are, falsely now smearing JD. They're trying to claim that he's abusing his wife, mistreating his wife, that his wife is in an unhappy, loveless marriage. She's basically almost kidnapped. Blink 4 times if you need to, if you need us to help you and rescue you. They're trying to create a false portrait to smear the wife, Usha Vance, and to smear her husband, J.D. Vance. And I think a key reason for this, and you may agree, you may disagree, I'd love to hear from you, is they fear J.D. Vance. For them to start going this low, to go after the wife, and not just go after the wife, but claim that she wants to leave, that she wants a divorce, that she's so miserable because apparently JD is this horrible human being. Again, lies, smears. Okay, pure defamation. So when you're in the business now of trying to break a marriage up, you're sick. You're sick. That's, you want to talk about vicious and malicious. They fear JD. And they fear JD because they can clearly see he's the heir apparent. They thought, and by the way, even many Republicans in the establishment, okay, we'll just ride out the Trump second term, give him as little as we possibly can, and then, it'll all return back to quote unquote normal. We can put this genie back in the bottle. So we'll get rid of Trump, and with him we'll get rid of MAGA, and the swamp will live again. And what they're fearing now, and what they're realizing is, no, it's not going back in the bottle. That MAGA is going to live beyond Trump. And the man now who's the heir apparent, the heir to the throne, is J.D. Vance. And he's been an incredibly effective, competent, loyal vice president. In fact, Trump has said repeatedly, he really is my right-hand man. It doesn't matter. If I got to deal with Congress, send JD. If I'm dealing with a foreign policy crisis, there's JD. If I'm talking about the border or mass deportations, there's JD. So JD Vance is not some figurehead the way, let's say, Judas Mike Pence was, who was, incognito for the entire 4 years, missing in action for 4 years. J.D. Vance has been by Trump's side every step of the way. And he's beloved by so many Trump supporters. Now, in that podcast, Psaki gives the game away. What they basically are saying, this is what she said. Yes, Trump is a hardcore MAGA guy, but she even says his bark tends to be bigger than his bite. In other words, that Trump at times can be pragmatic. Trump at times can make deals. Trump at times can be flexible. She says, and I think on this point she's right, that JD is even more hardline when it comes to America first and being MAGA than even Trump is. That he's all bite. Not much bark, but he's all bite. And so what they're realizing is the MAGA revolution is going to live on. That Trump has a very deep bench. And the first star is J.D. Vance. And now we're looking at potentially not just another 4, but maybe even another 8 years of MAGA rule after Trump leaves in 2028. So now they're looking at him, who, J.D., extremely competent, very effective, highly intelligent, polished, extremely articulate, very well spoken, a nice man, a likable man with a nice, beautiful smile, and he's got an Indian wife. Now, think how this destroys the entire Democratic narrative and their obsession with identity politics. He's got a wife who's the child of immigrants. She's of Indian descent. So she's diversity. She's also a highly intelligent, highly educated woman. So she checks off box after box after box. How are you going to portray JD as a white supremacist? How are you going to portray JD as some kind of a Nazi? Look at his wife. Look at her background. Look at her family. Look at everything she is and what she stands for. So they now fear this combination of JD and Usha Vance. Because you want diversity? Check. You want a highly intelligent woman? Check. You want a child of immigrants? Check. And, you've got MAGA. He is philosophically at his core America first and MAGA. So it's going to be Trump 2.0 when J.D. Vance wins, and I'm telling you, he will win in 2028. So now it's destroy their marriage, destroy how the public views their marriage, destroy the wife, try to force or create some kind of a divorce or separation between them, because otherwise they can't win. To me, one of the lines in a civilized society that you don't cross is you don't try to break up a couple, a married couple, especially a happily married couple. And not just a happily married couple, but a happily married couple with young children. And let me just say this, because that's the undertone of the entire attack against Usha, that Usha is dissatisfied in her marriage because she's raising her young children. She's not this modern feminist who refuses to have children, or if she does have children, she'll outsource them to daycare or outsource them to a nanny, or will not give up her career, who refuses to give up her career for the sake of her children. So they're trying to paint Usha Vance as having betrayed the sisterhood, as they say. What is wrong, and this is personal for me because it's my wife. Grace was the same. When we adopted Ashton and Ava, highly educated, She was really rising in her career. She stayed home for many years to primarily raise Ashton and Ava. She said they're young children. They need to have their mother in the home as much and as often as possible. Now, when they get a little bit older, that's a different story. And now Grace is resuming her career, as she has for the last couple of years. But somehow it's a betrayal if a woman stays home to raise her young children. I'm sorry, I think it's disgusting. What's wrong with being a mother? It's one of the most important things you can ever do in life, as it is for me being a father. What's wrong with being so selfless that you're willing to put a pause, put your career on hold, maybe, slow down your career advancement because your children come first? What's wrong with putting your children first? And notice, the Democrats hate the family. And they hate motherhood. What's wrong with motherhood? J.D. Vance was asked after this disgusting comment was made by Jen Psaki, and it went everywhere. I mean, it went viral. Everywhere. I want to give you his response, and I want to ask all of you, what do you make of Jen Psaki's attack on Usha Vance, her attempt to break up their marriage? And if a wife stays home to raise her young children and put her career on hold?
I think the little Manchurian candidate, J.D. Vance, wants to be president more than anything else.
Yeah.
I always wonder what's going on in the mind of his wife. Like, are you okay? Please blink 4 times.
Yes.
We'll come over here. We'll save you.
Honestly, unbelievable. Anyway, there's been massive blowback. Conservatives are enraged. Trump supporters are furious. I'm furious, frankly. And I'm with MAGA on this, as I usually am, obviously, 1,000%. Listen now to J.D. Vance. He was asked by reporters to respond, and listen to what J.D. had to say. Roll cut 32, Mike.
Former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki made some comments suggesting that your wife, the Second Lady, needed to be saved from you. How do you feel about comments like that being made while you're here with the Second Lady?
Oh, I think it's disgraceful, but of course the Second Lady can speak for herself, and I'm very lucky to have a wonderful wife, and I know, or at least I hope that my wife feels the same about me, but we are very lucky to have this journey, or I should say I'm very lucky to go on this journey with a very loving wife. We're going to keep on serving the country together, and I'm honored to have Usha by my side on this trip in particular, but always.
So that was their trip to Israel, their recent trip. They returned from their trip, but that was, and she made the comments while they were in the air, flying to Israel. I thought, frankly, his response was very classy. It was to me typical J.D. Vance, and also though effective in his own way. I mean, he's not Trump. It's nobody is. He's got a very different personality. But what he's basically saying is her comments are so disgusting, they're beneath my contempt. I'm not even going to give you much of an answer. In other words, she's so stupid, I don't want to pour gasoline on the fire of this scandal or this controversy. And, and my wife can defend herself, and my wife will defend herself. And then I thought the way he took the high road, saying, she's helping me serve the country, and together we're going to serve the country together. And that's all that matters. It was a presidential answer, frankly. It was a very polished, classy answer. And it makes Jen Psaki now look even worse. Literally, even worse. Now, I want to ask all of you, okay? 617-266-6868. To the women in particular, but to everybody, are you tired of the vilification of motherhood? Because that's really what this was. Do you, as mothers in particular, or as families where your wife, your partner, has decided to step away from the job, the career path, to raise young children, do you feel criticized or demeaned by society for choosing motherhood? To me, motherhood is one of the most beautiful, if not the most beautiful thing you can do. But not with Jen Psaki, not with most feminists, and clearly not with the Democratic Party. 617-266-6868. May in Lexington. Thanks for holding, May, and welcome.
Good morning, Jeff.
Hi, May.
Hi, how are you?
I'm very good.
Okay, well, I just woke up this morning a little bit ago before going to work, and I heard about this subject and this topic, and this is something that I'm very passionate about. I'm also a psychotherapist, and I myself am educated, and I decided when I was pregnant, maybe I was fortunate enough in the sense, but, of course we made cutbacks financially, but I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom. It was a choice. It was a choice that I feel passionate about. I absolutely love being a mom. I see absolutely nothing wrong. I don't understand these women who don't want to, feel the pleasure and experience nature in the sense of just being a mom. It doesn't make you any less of a person. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. However, I just don't understand what this bashing is all about. And I do believe the breakdown of the nuclear family is what's contributing to a lot of this anxiety and these illnesses, mental illnesses that are going on with children now. Children are not playing outside like they used to. Everything is being monitored. Everything is under the guidance of adults, and it's programmed. And I just feel like we look at nature. We look at animals. The mothers don't push their baby birds out of the nest. It's hard. I know it seems to be a luxury now to be able to be a mom at home because of finances and things like that. My gosh, it's hard. But I do think that if it was more affordable, I do think a lot of women would be choosing to stay home with their kids. That's just my 2 cents.
Amen. May, I couldn't agree with you more. And look, this is, you may agree or disagree with me on this, May, and that's fine. I think deep down, Jen Psaki is envious. If you really want my honest opinion, I think she's envious. I think, like many feminists, modern feminists, radical feminists, she looks at someone like Usha Vance, who is highly educated, successful, has a loving husband, is actually happily married, contrary to everything she's trying to claim, and they have a wonderful young family. And Jen Psaki doesn't have that because of the career path, which is fine. That's her choice. I believe in choice. I believe women should have the choice. I never want to force a woman to do something she doesn't want to do, God forbid. But she bought into the whole feminist lie that for a woman to really, no, it's the line from Gloria Steinem, that a woman needs a man the way a fish needs a bicycle. Well, May, can you hang on? Because I'm up against the break, but I want to continue this conversation. No.
Former White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki made some comments suggesting that your wife, the Second Lady, needed to be saved from you. How do you feel about comments like that being made while you're here with the Second Lady?
Oh, I think it's disgraceful, but of course the Second Lady can speak for herself, and I'm very lucky to have a wonderful wife, and I know, or at least I hope that my wife feels the same about me, but we are very lucky to have this journey, or I should say I'm very lucky to go on this journey with a very loving wife. We're going to keep on serving the country together. And I'm honored to have Usha by my side on this trip in particular, but always.
So that, of course, was J.D. Vance's response to Jen Psaki's vile attack on his wife, Usha Vance. 8:33 on the great WRKO. Jeff Kuhner, Boston's bulldozer. 617-266-6868. Okay, I want to go right back to May in Lexington. May is a therapist, a very successful therapist, but she did temporarily put her career on hold to raise her wonderful children, and she said it was one of the greatest decisions she ever made. One of the problems facing women today, it's very expensive. I mean, if you need two incomes now. Many homes need two incomes. So for a wife, a mother to stay home, to take care of the children, raise the children on one income is difficult, very difficult. And so May was making the point that she thinks many women, if they could financially swing it, would follow in Usha Vance's, path or footsteps. That they would stay home and raise the children, but just financially it has become so difficult to do so. May, I've got to ask you this. Jen Psaki is married. Jen Psaki, apparently, I'm just going by the texts, has two children, ages 8 and 6. What I don't understand is you would think, being a mother herself, having two young children herself, that she would be much more sympathetic to Usha Vance and empathic towards Usha Vance. Instead, she seems bitter. She seems angry. She seems, she's nasty. What do you think is driving this? Why would a mother herself, married, with two young children, hate another woman for the decision to stay home and raise their young kids? What's your theory, May?
Well, my guess would be, if I could just say one thing. First of all, I'm a live and let live kind of person. Everybody has a right to choose their own destiny and their own lifestyle. As long as you're kind, you're doing, you're doing something with yourself to make the world a better place. I could care less what you choose to do. My thoughts are that women, especially in academia, have been conditioned to feel that, all the blood, sweat, and tears that you're going through, that you're doing in your education and maybe post-grad, whatever it may be, that this is your life. And this is what what you're supposed to do. And therefore choosing to do something else is kind of a weaker position, so to speak, if that makes sense. I think that maybe Jen Psaki, maybe she's jealous, or maybe she's not. Maybe she just thinks, like, how can you be a woman and like that? How can you choose to be like that? I don't know. That's just my thoughts. It could be a number of things of why she's making those comments.
Interesting. Look, a lot of people, Kuhner Country listeners, are texting in. And here's what one of them texted, just to give you an example. 617, Jeff, maybe Jen Psaki is jealous of the decision that she did not make to stay home. In other words, maybe deep down she feels guilty. Maybe deep down she feels envious or jealous that she looks at her children and she didn't spend nowhere near as much time with them as Usha Vance is with her young kids. And maybe deep down there's a resentment. To your point, that, being college educated, feminist, they're reared and raised to think, well, my God, the last thing you want to do is, put your career on hold and just stay, just stay at home and raise your kids. It's an inferior way to live. And so she did that, what the feminists told her to do. And she looks at Usha and maybe she feels deep down barren. I don't mean barren that she can't have children, but I mean morally barren. That maybe she feels I should have been there more for my children. Because you see, she doesn't have the lack of money as an excuse. She was financially very successful. In fact, right now, she's made so much money in the media, she could take a 5-year hiatus easy and raise her children financially, not a problem. So, May, I know you don't know, nobody can read into someone's soul, But I look at her and I'm like, boy, to go after the wife like this, in such a vile way. A woman, by the way, who's done nothing to Jen Psaki ever, has never said a word about Jen Psaki. There's something going on. Deep down, there's something going on. May, final word to you. Am I wrong?
No, I don't think you're wrong. But first of all, as a woman, who can shame, or as a human being, who can shame somebody who wants to stay home with their kids because they love their kids? Who could ever shame someone for that?
Oh, that's a dynamite point.
Who could? It's not like she's sitting back smoking a crack pipe, and her kids are running around she's a mom. She appears to be, from what I see, a loving and caring mom. Who can fault somebody for that?
Drop the mic. Yeah, Jen Psaki can. I mean, that's, you know what I mean? Yeah, Jen Psaki can, if you can believe it. May, outstanding call. Please don't be a stranger. Call again. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay. Sandy made a point to me off air, and I think it's a very good one. She said, Jeff, look, they're trying to destroy the nuclear family. That's the goal of the left. That's the goal of the Democratic Party. So why would they revere motherhood? Of course they hate motherhood, because ultimately they want to destroy the nuclear family. And I think May's point earlier, it was the previous, before we went to break, where she said the breakdown of the family, the breakup of the family unit. If you look at so many of the ills that are affecting our society, really it goes back to that fundamental breakdown of the family, which is, it is the basic unit of society. The social pathologies that we're dealing with, how many children are growing up mentally ill, inexplicably violent. You don't have a mother and a father parenting children together, especially if you have drugs involved, or, as May put it, you're smoking a crack pipe and you're letting your kids do whatever they want, or as common now, they just stick them in front of a video game and let that kid play for 10, 12, 14 hours a day. Yeah, that's what's causing so much of the problems in our society. I think there's no question. So to me, you should look at someone like JD and Usha Vance and say, yeah, that's what we want. You want a loving father and a loving mother, happily married in a home, raising their kids. Like, that used to be the ideal. Remember, you get married, you have children, you have a home and a white picket fence. That used to be called the American dream. Now they scoff at it. They mock it. They ridicule it. They hate it. 617-266-6868 is the number. Okay, I want to read to you something that my wonderful wife wrote me. Jeff, if you ask me, what is my most cherished possession? This is from Grace. It is all the pictures I have of our children in those years that they were my sole focus. They were the most difficult years, and yet the most precious. Will they ever grasp the magnitude of my sacrifices for them? She asks. But I know in my heart it is the greatest accomplishment of my life, regardless of what anyone else might ever say. 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. The lines are loaded. Let's go to Brooks in the great state of North Carolina. Thanks for holding, Brooks, and welcome.
Jeff, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Brooks. Can you hear me?
I'm here, brother. Let me switch this phone. My battery's getting a little low here. A couple of things come to mind here. They pulled this with Trump and Melania, and it was scary. I mean, it looked like there was a divide, but she came back with him on his second term and is been by his side. This is going to pass. This is going to pass. And let me describe something else. The love in that cabinet meeting yesterday, how everybody gets along so well, is going to embrace JD. They're not going to let the left is going to try to bully JD and Usha's marriage, but there's so much love in that cabinet meeting, Trump's cabinet members, they're not going to put up with it. People are sick of the left. They're tired of it. Just look at, all of these attempts. I mean, speaking about vice presidents, I think it's interesting that Pence is going to be under federal indictment because of him co-conspiring with Bolton. And so there's some real activity going on with the vice president. Let the media talk about Mike Pence and how he tried to take down Trump through secret backdoors of communication with Peter Strzok. They can get into this, ridiculous attempt to take down J.D. Vance. Corinthians has taught us one thing. The Apostle Paul told us that you can't trick love. Love is patient, it's kind, it's real. It's the most holy communion that a man and a woman can take together. It's sacred. They can't get involved in this, Jeff. It'll have no bearing because it'll fail. You can't trick love. It either is or it isn't. J.D. Vance is going to be the next president of this country, and it's going to drive the left insane. And it's going to be fantastic.
Oh, Brooks, from your lips to God's ears. Brooks, I just want to ask you this. And again, maybe it's me, maybe it's my upbringing, I don't know. But how do you attack a woman who is obviously happily married, has told everybody around her she's happily married, goes on about what a loving husband and devoted, faithful husband J.D. is. J.D., everybody who knows him says he's madly in love with Usha Vance. They have a very tight, close bond. And he didn't ask her to pull away from her career, to raise the children, to stay home full time as a mother. She volunteered. And he said, are you sure you want to do this? And she said, my mother did it for me, and I want to do it for my kids. And she goes, don't worry, because he's like, look, you got a very promising career. I mean, Yale Law School, clerking for, the chief Supreme Court justice, clerking for Brett Kavanaugh. I mean, you're going to be arguing cases in front of the Supreme Court. And she's like, that'll come. But what we've created, our little munchkins, those children of ours, that's our legacy. That's you and me. And I'm going to give them everything that I have. And on top of that, I mean, I got to say, she was with him in Israel. She went every Christian holy site, because she's a devout Christian as well. People don't know that about Usha, but she's a very devout Christian. They went to every Christian holy site. She defends America. She represents America extremely well. I mean, why would you, if you want to go after JD, look, he's the public figure. Go after JD. I mean, don't smear the guy, but if you're going to go after somebody, go after him. But why go after the wife? In a sense, and Brooks, she's not even how do I say this? It's not like she was Hillary Clinton, where, I don't know, she's leading healthcare, or, she's taken a public profile position in the administration. She's the second lady who's a stay-at-home mom, God bless her, who doesn't talk about public policy issues at all. So she's a private person. So why would you go after a mother for wanting to be a mother? Brooks, what's your theory?
Precisely. I don't have a theory on that other than the left, and I think you mentioned it, it might have been yesterday's program. You talked about how communism really partners with Satanism. And this is just another dirty trick from the left. But, isn't it interesting that I think the friendship between Usha and Charlie Kirk's wife, Erica, was something this nation got to intimately see, and they began to praise each other and comfort each other. And this is what is offensive to Satanists. This is what is offensive to what Paul wrote about in Corinthians. And so love is patient, it's kind, it's holy. And so, for the left to try to attack it just shows how desperate they are, Jeff. This is a spiritual battle. This is a spiritual battle between good and evil. But the thing is right now, for some reason, the Lord is allowing us to win. He's giving us a window of what winning looks like. And I think that the left is going to try these conspiracies. They're going to try these kick in the shins, but they're just it's a snake without venom, and they're so viled, they're so hated, they're so despised. So it's a cruel trick. But interestingly, Eric Trump is writing all about this in his new book Under Siege, and he talks about the very intimate relationships between he and Laura, and how Trump at one point himself showed up at her doorstep, and he just wanted to say how happy he was that they were starting to look like they were going to become a married couple. And so Trump's love is very, very important to the family. It's very real, and I think this is expanding out within the cabinet, and I feel strongly the cabinet is going to protect Vance. And it's interesting because even Pam Bondi said yesterday during the cabinet meeting, she said there's so much love amongst us in this group. And it was interesting she said that because I think it's genuine. I think that they all, Stephen Miller, they're trying to go after he and his wife. Good luck. Yeah.
Now and it wasn't just one or two. Now that's the line of attack. He's a Nazi Jew. And you're right, Brooks, this is a phenomenal call. I got to tell you. I think you're right. The cabinet is rock solid. I think it's like almost you can sense the camaraderie, the sense of mission they all have. And you're right, the love in the room for one another. And they're going to have JD's back the way he has their back. And look, it's already blowing up in Jen Psaki's face. Honestly, the blowback she's getting, notice she's not pushing it anymore. How you're going after Usha Vance for being a loving, devoted mother? Like, lady, what is wrong with you? Brooks, thank you so much for that call. Really good call. 617-266-6868. Okay, quickly before I go to Andrea in Weymouth, the Kuhner Country poll question of the day, sponsored by Mario's. Mario's quality roofing, siding, and windows. Who needs to be rescued more? Usha Vance or Jen Psaki? Since Psaki opened the door, let's walk on through. So, who do you think needs to be rescued more? Usha or Jen Psaki? A, Usha Vance. B, Jen Psaki. You can vote on our webpage, wrko.com/Kuhner, wrko.com/Kuhner, Kuhn as in National ER. Of course, you can always vote on X. Again, last night I was very active on X. My handle there, at the Kuhner Report, all one word, at the Kuhner Report, Kuhn as in National ER. I don't vote in these polls. I let you vote. But if I was to vote, I'm a B. I'm a Jen Psaki on this all the way. No, Jen, I'm going to turn the tables. Wink 4 times. Wink 4 times, and we'll rescue you. Andrea in Weymouth. Thanks for holding, Andrea, and welcome.
Do it in 30 seconds, but I'll start. I was brought up in the late 50s and the 60s. That was the bra-burning, free love, women's lib, let's have abortions on every street corner time. I had all of those choices open to me. I wanted to raise a family, have children, raise a family. Yeah, I'm going to make an assumption which I shouldn't make, but my family was built through adoption, and I'm assuming that most people who do the same thing do so because, unfortunately, they couldn't have biological children no matter what they tried to do. And it's a very sad thing when that happens. So when I hear a puke like Jen Psaki, what I wish for somebody like her is that she can't have the children that she thinks she wants to have. Because what Jen Psaki is, besides being a horrible person, is somebody who wants to parade her kids out there in their $300 dresses and then have the nanny go and take them back upstairs. I absolutely despise people like that. They have no understanding of life. These people have not, when you want to have children and you can't, you suffer. And I suffered and lost pregnancy after pregnancy for 4 years. And that's the kind of suffering these people need, because you can't reach them unless they feel it and they're humbled.
Well, I would just, and by the way, I'm very sorry. I am very sorry for those, those miscarriages or those lost pregnancies. I'm very sorry. I've had many women tell me this, and it's extremely painful. Physically, but especially morally, spiritually, psychologically. And as you know, Andrea, Grace and I adopted. Both our children are adopted. We couldn't have children. Both Grace and I, we just can't have children. And I just can only piggyback off of what you're saying. We took us years to finally adopt. We tried, and it's a long waiting line. And this is the thing I want people to know. I can't tell you how many meetings we went to with these adoption agencies. The room is full. I mean, packed. White couples, racially mixed couples, black couples, Latino couples, Asian couples, young couples, old couples. It really, I'm telling you, it's across the entire spectrum. And they're praying for a miracle to adopt a child. And when you see someone like Jen Psaki, and she's got 2 children of her own, and, look, she's a liar. I mean, I'm just stating a fact. She lied for Joe Biden. She's not very smart. She's Mrs. Circle Back. Every question you'd ask of her, she was so unprepared that she would just say, I'll circle back to you. I'll circle back to you. I'll circle back to you. So this is a woman who basically has lied her way into a multi-million-dollar fortune because she was willing to lie. That was her only talent, was that she was willing to lie to your face and to the American people as his press secretary night after night, day after day. And then she gets rewarded with this ridiculous gig on MSNBC where she's paid this obscene amount of money, $25 million, I think, to do what, 1 show a week or 2 shows a week? And, okay, fine, listen, you got your $25 million a year. But you're right. She's exactly the kind of feminist that will put on a $300-400 dress on her kid, show the kid off, like, hey, do a little circle, do a little twirl, or to the boy, hey, come on, show him how well you look, how good you look in this. And then to have the nanny take him upstairs and continue with her cocktail party in Georgetown. And to go after another woman because she made the beautiful decision to raise her 3 children and literally is nice to everybody, is kind to everybody, is loving and compassionate to everybody. I got to say this, and I'm pretty sure she's an atheist because that's just how these people roll. But have you no fear of God? When you've been given so much, and you just you just spit at everybody else, and you're such an ingrate. Honestly, it really is satanic. You look at the Democratic Party, it's a satanic party. They hate the family, they hate children, they hate America, they hate religion, they hate the Jews, they hate Christians, they hate everything that's good and decent in the world. Andrea, final word to you. Agree, disagree?
Well, Jeff, the day we brought home our son, he was 7 weeks old. The day we brought home our son, it still today, and I'm in my 70s now. I'm a grandmother. My son is in his mid-40s. It was the best day of my life. I did everything I could to only work as much as necessary because my husband is a blue-collar person. only work as much as necessary to pay the bills and put some money aside a little bit so that we'd be able to retire one day. My life was devoted, and still is, not only to my son and to his wife, but my grandchildren. We've done all their child care. We do everything to make their lives better, because that's what you're supposed to do. It's not about you. It's for the next generation. It's not about your politics. Women today, these younger women in the I don't know, 30 to 46-year-old category, they are so selfish. They are so, they simply have no concept. And as a woman now who's in my early 70s, I've seen so much of this, but I've never seen it this bad. It's reprehensible. I don't even want to know these women. I don't want to. You see them at the No Kings protest and wherever else they're protesting. Something is missing from these women, and I think it's the fact that a lot of them had mothers who were like that as well, because they drank the Kool-Aid that the media was pushing them, and the Marxists were in the schools helping them, egging them on, saying, yeah, go, go, go.
Andrea, God bless you, and thank you so much for that call. And by the way, your son is very lucky to have you as a mom. You sound like an outstanding mom and an outstanding grandmother. And again, God bless you and your beautiful family. 617-266-6868 is the number. By the way, I have to say this. With my two children, I'm not saying I do it every day, but once in a while, I will tell both of them, you know how lucky you are to have a mother like Grace? I will tell them that right to their face. Say we're having dinner or whatever, and I'll tell them, go kiss your mother now. Well, they're like, why? Because I told you to. Go kiss your mother. Like, you're very lucky to have your mom. Now, appreciate it. Go give her a kiss. Because she, just like Andrea, she lives for the kids. 617-266-6868. Richard in New Hampshire. Thanks for holding, Richard, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff.
Hi, Richard.
I just wanted to bring something out that I have been recently reading about, which is the sub-archetypal structures of the subconscious. One is the nurturing mother, the other is the terrible mother, and what we're witnessing is this perfidious thing that Little Miss Circleback said it is this whole bringing out of this collective subconscious of the terrible mother, which is feminism, which is genuine, this modernized feminism of people not rejecting the nurturing mother, the good mother, the nurturing mother. It is the within the anima and the animus, one is feminine, one is masculine. And the point is that they have had this bringing out from what they call the Frankfurt School, which was bringing out this nihilism of what we're seeing. The wokeness and all this stuff is the fruits of this type of thinking, which is Marxist based, and this is just we're witnessing it. What they said yesterday was the quiet part out loud, or what it was a couple of days ago or something. The quiet part out loud is that these people are empowered by the rejection of the nurturing, and are empowered by the breaking apart or the evality of the terrible mother. I don't know what you think about that. I don't know if that makes any sense to you or not.
It makes perfect sense. I think you really, it's a deep psychological point that you're making. But no, I think it makes perfect sense. And look, I'm going to go even one step further, and I know I'm right. I'm just telling you on this, you're right. I'm telling you, you're right. When you talk about this nihilism that's driving this Marxism, the bad mother, and, she feels guilty. I'm telling you, deep down, she feels guilty. And she feels guilty for this reason. Not that she has to work, because a lot of women have to work. They have no choice. You got to put food on the table. You have let's say, just assume they're both, the father and the mother are both working. The father's income now often is not enough. So the mother has to work. Well, you got to work. I mean, you got to work. So you don't feel guilty about it. But she has made so much money over her career that she knows, I don't need to work. I really don't need to work. And I don't mean like she's made a couple $100,000. We're talking tens and tens of millions of dollars. You could be living in mansions and going vacationing around the world and, putting your feet up and setting up your children for the rest of their lives. But she feels guilty because it's greed. She keeps doing it and she's neglecting her children. And she has someone else raising her children when deep down she feels, I really should be raising my own children. 617-266-6868 is the number. You can also text the Kuhner Man, 70470, 70470. This is from 512. Jeff, I have the answer to your question of why is Jen Psaki like this. The answer is she's a hateful Democrat, and she is on the bandwagon no matter what. It's a psychosis, the mass formation psychosis among all the Democrats, similar to the hive mentality. It makes absolutely no sense. If someone actually asked Jen Psaki why she hates Usha Vance, I bet she wouldn't even have an answer. It's all part of the dehumanization process from the Democrats. You know what, 512? I think you're really onto something. 617-266-6868. Victor in Maryland. Thanks for holding, Victor, and welcome.
Morning, America's talk show host.
Thank you, Victor.
I can't believe this. It's 70 years ago that we moved to Nahant. I was the only blind kid in the town, and they hired someone to take me to a sight-saving class in Lynn for a couple of years until my father thought I wasn't learning anything. My mother was able to stay home and take care of my sister and me. For example, we would go swimming at Short Beach or swimming in front of the house, climb down on the rocks, go swimming. She would call the woman at the end of the street and tell her to tell us it's time to come home for lunch. I mean, my mother had about 5 or 6 other mothers, looking after me. And it was one of the most wonderful places I ever spent from 8 years to 15 years. And the saddest day was when we had to leave Nahant because my father got transferred to New York. But I do remember got into an argument with my wife at the time. She thought there was something wrong with my mother because she stayed home and took care of my sister and me. And we had a big argument over that. It was got to call him sometime and see about my other classmates. But
well, Victor, look, I want to ask you this: what was the argument? What was so bad? When you argued with this person, what was so bad that your mom decided to stay home and raise you and your sister? Like, what was the argument that they were making? What's so wrong with that? What was so horrible about that?
She thought that my mother should have worked like every other woman.
And neglect the kids?
Yeah. I was very lucky that my mother was able to stay home because I needed a lot of help with my schoolwork. She had to read to me. She had to help me look up stuff because it was hard for me to see the print. And I remember having a hard time reading print, especially the purple mimeograph paperwork where I had to fill in the blanks, for example, for English or something. and I remember smelling that ink, and because I was a nose reader, I had to. The only way I could read print was about an inch from the page.
Wow. Wow. So your mother really helped you a lot when you were young then, right, Victor?
Yes, she did. She really did. And it was very fortunate that she was able to stay home while my father was out at sea. He was in the Coast Guard. And when he came to shore, he helped me with my arithmetic, which was a big help. And the other mothers looked after me when I was out playing in the town, and I remember walking about a mile down the causeway to Big Nahant, where I went to school, and the teachers were very understanding, except for one, and I was able to keep up with the class, and I really had a lot of friends, and I really miss Nahant. I wish I could go back and visit.
Victor, God bless you and God bless your mom. Thank you so much for that call, Victor. So, I mean, there you go. I mean, I'm sure you could do weeks and weeks of shows of people calling in and saying, you know, we were lucky, very fortunate. Financially, we were able to do it. My mother could have stayed home and didn't have to work to feed the family, and and we were grateful for it. We were very happy when our mother made that sacrifice for us. To me, honestly, I look at someone like Jen Psaki, and that's the modern Democratic Party for you. Really, in a nutshell. Mean, vile, nasty, malicious, insulting, and look, notice she's not talking about this anymore. It's another 90-10 issue. 617-266-6868. Okay, we're going to go right to your calls. But first, joining us now, as she always does at this time, she is the co-founder, president, CEO of Kelly Financial Services, Kelly. Kelly, how are you?
Good morning, Jeff. I am good. You know, with the holidays right around the corner, it's so easy for spending to sneak up. A few last-minute flights, a couple of extra gifts, and before you know it, you've gone way past what you planned. A lot of retirees tell us they want to be generous without jeopardizing their income plan. The key is knowing what you can safely spend and what to avoid so the season stays joyful without creating financial stress. Our complimentary guide, Will Your Money Last as Long as You Do, explains how those small overspending moments can add up and how to keep your income plan strong through the holidays and beyond. So give us a call or visit kellyfinancial.org to request your free copy or schedule a complimentary appointment. Jeff, I'll continue this conversation with our Kelly advisors tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. on Safe Money Strategies Radio. Do tune in or go to our radio rewind at kellyfinancial.org. Jeff, have a wonderful weekend. My best to Grace and the kiddos.
You too. All the best to you and everyone at Kelly Financial. Call now, 888-800-1881. 888-800-1881, or if you prefer, you can email Kelly directly, Kelly, Kelly, so Kelly at kellyfinancial.org. Okay, lines are loaded. Casey in Quincy, thanks for holding, Casey, and welcome.
For having me. I just wanted to say first, I know my mother is listening. She's a huge fan, so I just wanted to say hi to her. I had an opinion on, I'm a 34-year-old female that doesn't have any kids. That woman, Andrea, was saying that it's like a selfish group. Personally, to me, I think it's become so hard to be independent as a female of our age at this point. You can't live on your own without having these high-paying jobs. And you can't it's a responsibility. You want to take it on, but it's not responsible for us to take it on. We don't have, and also there's so many points to make about my generation of people that I don't understand them. It's to Jen Psaki, first of all, too, I think that's just playing good and evil. That's all we're fighting against now is the Democrats just show that they're just evil. They don't want the family together. They don't want people to have children. They don't want people talking to each other and bridging the gaps between each other. They just want everybody angry at everybody. But back to being a 34-year-old, I just think it's just so hard for us. Like, I'm from a very affluent area, and they just push education. They don't push you into trades. They don't push you into other thinking other than higher education, which is just poisoning the minds of kids like my age. I even see it. Finally, I start seeing people are now starting to realize it, being real adults in the world, and in reality, they're seeing the reality of the world. I remember even back in 2008, I wasn't old enough to vote, and I could see what was coming, and I'm like, how do you people not realize this? They just seem to think that education's the only thing, that jobs are the only thing that matters, just because, I don't know, we're brainwashed into it, and I just don't think it's right to say we're selfish either, because it's just become so unaffordable to do anything on your own at this point. It's just, it's awful.
Well, you're making Casey, I have to say, you're making an excellent point. You really are. Look, let me just to take you as an example. You're 34 years old. You got to live, right? You got to live. You got to pay rent. You got to put a roof over your head. You got to put food on the table. You got to pay your bills. And, you work hard. You get educated. God bless you, right? And, you got a pretty decent job. And everything is so expensive. So, it's easy to say, well, have children. Okay, but children are expensive. But believe me, my kids, they're eating me out of house and home. They're eating Grace and I out of house and home. So, kids are expensive. Everything is expensive. Okay, not just kids, but kids are expensive. So, what is a woman like you to do, right? It's like, what, you think I can just adopt a child? By the way, adoption itself, it's 50, 60 grand easy just for the adoption. And then, the other thing is, look, Jeff, I have a high performance job. I have thank the Lord, a good job, a good paying job. They're not going to pay you good money to twiddle your thumbs. If they want you working 9, 10, 11 hours a day, you have no personal life. You're on call. You're on call in the night, at night after work. You're on call on the weekends. So women now are stretched thin. There's no question. There's absolutely no question. And I would just add this, Casey, because all I can do is piggyback off of what you're saying. What to me is very sad, and I'm speaking now not even as a conservative, just honestly as a fellow American. It was different when I grew up, and I'm not trying to do the whole back in my day, but really, yeah, the school system was left wing. Yeah, a lot of my professors were liberal and left wing, but it wasn't. You're betraying your gender if you fall in love with a man and get married and have a family. I mean, yes, there was an onus on you should empower yourself, you should be educated, go out there and, if you, be successful, follow a career. But there still was this sense of romantic love. In other words, really, like women and men both were like, falling in love is a beautiful thing. Meeting Mr. Right or meeting, Mrs. Right, that's a big part of what life is all about. There is none of that anymore. It's so sad. And you look at attitudes now in 20s, 30s, 40s. It's generational. It's the pickup culture, the hookup culture. The whole, well, I have a career and she has a career and, we'll just hook up once in a while and, satisfy our urges and she goes her way and I go my way. And I'm like, well, where's the love in that? Where's the romance in that? I don't know. Where's the commitment in that? It's all gone. It's just gone. And I honestly think women and men are missing out. And the saddest thing of all, last point, and I want to go right back to you, Casey. You look at opinion polls of people, say, 18 to 45. okay, 40, 45. They all complain they're lonely. The overwhelming problem now that people in that age group say they have is quote-unquote loneliness. Because we're not created to be alone. I mean, sometimes you have to be, I get it. But, you know, a woman craves a man. I know there's lesbians and homosexuality, but I'm just saying generally. A woman craves a man. A man craves a woman. A woman needs a man. A man needs a woman. It's the most natural thing that's going, you know, since the beginning of time. And eventually, if you're lucky, you have children, you have a family, and, you know, you raise them together. But this push that, no, all that matters is the career. All that matters is the job. And, you know, as Gloria Steinem said, a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. That's insane. And so you have now almost 2 generations where men say their girlfriend is porn. And where women say their boyfriend is either porn or, forgive me, a sex toy. And that gets awfully lonely and awfully unsatisfying very, very fast. Am I wrong, Casey?
Definitely has to do with the caliber of men out there. And it goes back to this country is just lacking morals. That's really all it is. It goes really down to the fundamentals of everybody has lost their morals. Everybody is just going by, oh yeah, this sounds good, let's go by doing that. No, that's not good. Nobody's looking at the big picture of things. It's crazy to me. And looking at everything every day and looking at kids my age, I'm like, what is wrong with you? And the younger kids coming up, I'm like, do you guys just not care? Do you just not care?
Casey, can I ask you a personal question? I don't mean to rush you, but we literally got about a minute left before we go to break. Because I've heard this complaint from many women your age, okay? Conservative women, intelligent women, attractive women, educated women. I mean, they've got everything going for them. And I say, well, I got to ask. I mean, where's the boyfriend? You know, where's the husband? And they say, you don't know how bad the men are. Jeff, it's a cesspool out there. Has that been your experience? That when you date, you find the men out there, let's put it this way, really disappointing?
Yeah, it is. But I do have a boyfriend, and he's great. But it's like, even him, like, they just are so afraid to commit to anything. They won't commit to anybody because it's like, what's going to be better out there? Because everything's so accessible to everybody. I think, like, again, back to morals. That's all it is. And I think we've just...
No, I know. We're losing our morality. Casey, this has been an incredible call. 617-266-6868. You can also text the Kuhner Man, 70470. Just very quickly, this is a text from my sister, Jennifer, Jen, as I like to call her, from Tucson, Arizona. Now, just so that you know, she's married, obviously. 2 boys, my 2 nephews. She is a working mom. She's a working mom and a proud working mom. And this is what she writes, and it's interesting. Jeff, I never felt any pressure from men regarding being a stay-at-home mom versus being a working mom. The worst, however, are like Jen Psaki. They are the women who criticize other women. They are so nasty. Women are more miserable than they have ever been. Really? Okay. They should look at themselves and leave others alone. People who spew hate are usually so miserable with themselves and do not want to face what's looking back at them in the mirror. Well, there's no question Jen Psaki is full of hate. That there's no question. And yeah, I do think she's miserable. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm sorry. On this, I agree with my sister. It's a miserable, nasty woman. 617. And on the surface, she has it all. She's married. She's got 2 kids. She's got a high-profile media gig. She's making tens and tens of millions of dollars a year. I mean, seriously, you should be on cloud 9. Not Jen Psaki. Jay in Lexington. Thanks for holding, Jay, and welcome.
Morning, Jeff. I got some tough acts to follow. These have been some great calls. I just want to say quickly, what it really comes down to is the left hates J.D. Vance because both he and Bill Clinton came from the same background, broken homes, both went on to Yale Law School. They both met their wives at Yale Law School. Yet the difference is J.D. Vance actually loves his wife. Bill and Hillary, that's just a business arrangement, and the only reason they're not divorced is because they can't testify against each other. That's what it really comes down to.
Jay, you're dead on. That's a really interesting angle. I didn't even think of that. And just to add, really what the Clintons have is an open marriage. I mean, that's seriously. I mean, look, it's their business, but I'm just telling you, they have an open marriage. There's no question. And, Jay, tell me if you agree or disagree. I think in some quarters of the left, and even Psaki said it in the interview and that podcast, it's almost like they fear, if it's possible, but they fear J.D. Vance even a little more than Trump. Because, Trump, look, there's a lot of bite, don't get me wrong. But, he's a little bark. He's pragmatic. He's flexible. He's willing to make a deal. J.D., if it's possible, maybe even more America first philosophically, at his philosophical core than Trump. And so they look at a guy like J.D. and they're like, man, no, we're really going to get Trumpism. And maybe, the one complaint against Trump, even among some of his supporters, I love his personality. I love his press conferences. But some people say his personality's off-putting. They don't like his style. It's too coarse, according to them. It's too vulgar. It's too in your face. Well, think about it. Really, J.D. is a very polished, articulate Trump. You're getting Trumpism without his brash style. And it's almost like the left says, oh my God, he could even be more effective than Trump. What say you, Jay?
So Trump's the John Wayne where J.D. Vance is the Ronald Reagan. I mean, it's like you got the Winston Churchill style where you shoot from the hip, where J.D. can say the same thing but a little more polished.
I agree. Great analogy. Great analogy. Jay, outstanding call. You met the moment, my friend. It was a tough act to follow, but you followed it. Ronnie in Florida. Thanks for holding, Ronnie, and welcome.
Listen to you every morning at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Thank you.
And I love you. And I have also been a stay-home mother. I'm an only child, and I wanted to be home, and I couldn't have the things that I take trips and stuff, but I would do it. And then my daughter got married, and I ended up watching their kids. I grew, and I am so close to them. I did everything. I took them to the doctors. I took them to the movies. And they're very loving to me. And I will be up in New York. My granddaughter is expecting her baby. And also, when she was 22, she got cancer. And we were really very upset about it. And they call me all the time. And I wouldn't trade anything. And I've been married for 55 years. My husband died, and I wish I could go back and have the things all over again. Because I did it for my daughter, and she needed me, and I did it for the two kids. They were 9 months old, and I took care of them.
Ronnie, you sound like such a wonderful woman. Honestly. God bless you. And please don't be a stranger. Call again. Okay, Ronnie? 617-266-6868. Okay, Maestro Mike. Who do you want me to go to next? Dave in the great state of Vermont. Speaking of Bernie country. Dave, how are you, my friend?
I'm well, my friend. How are you?
Good. Dave, what do you make of this vicious attack now on Usha Vance? Now they're going after the Vance's marriage, for God's sake.
Well, she's a pathological liar, for crying out loud. I wanted to make a point about the first topic you were saying.
Yes, go ahead.
With the Nazis and everything. Do you think the American people would have been very upset at the government when they found out that the government and the country was being inoculated with Nazis in Operation Paperclip?
You're talking about now after World War II, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, they would have been enraged. I mean, we just fought a war against them, for God's sake. They would have been absolutely enraged. You know, and you're right. I mean, they brought in some of the top German scientists who were diehard Nazis and researchers, and, you know, it's a stain. It's a stain on our country. There's no question.